Before we talk about formulas or automation, we need to get the foundation right because most of the Google Sheets problems are not formula problems. Those are structure problems. In this video, I'll show you the Google Sheets basics that actually matter in real business use and not everything, only what you will repeatedly use when building systems. Let's switch to the sheets.
Okay, so here we are. This is a new Google Sheets. Not even the headers are there, and we have made a new untitled spreadsheet. Now, as I mentioned earlier, before touching the formulas or automation, I want to design the system properly. So let's assume the goal is simple. Let's say I want to build an expense tracking system. Maybe over here we'll change the title. Right. So we are going to make an expense tracking system. So whenever I design a system, I first think in terms of flow and not the tools, right? Because the flow is the first part of any project and it is very important, right? So the few questions that I ask myself is, where does data come in? Where does the logic happen? And where are the decisions made, right? So every system starts with some input. So the first tab I'll create is called maybe raw expenses, right? This tab is only for input, right? No formulas, no summaries, no logic. And one row will always represent only one expense. Now I'll start defining the headers. This is the first step I always do, because headers are effectively the schema of the system, basically your structure. If headers are not clean, then there would be some issues, but if they are clean, everything else becomes easier later on, right? So since this is the expense sheet, I'll just add some maybe expense ID. Then we can add expense date, amount, maybe category, vendor, payment mode, maybe UPI, something like that. And what we can add more, maybe something about the comments if we want to add some notes over here while making the expenses and all. And maybe when we created this, right? I am deliberately not formatting anything, so because the structure comes before presentation. Once we are done with the structure, we will go with the beautification part of it, right? So I think for headers, I think this is done, right? uh, but do remember, this tab will never ever contain totals, charts, or calculations, right? Raw data should stay raw always, and that is non-negotiable. If this gets messy, the entire system breaks later on, right? Next, I ask what data needs control. Like across all these columns, what are those few columns which need some control, right? So I would say categories, then categories and vendors should not be typed every time, right? So I'll create a reference table. So the next tab would be categories. This will mostly store the allowed list of categories. Maybe we can add something around category ID, category name, and maybe the type. I'll just say category type. Yeah, so we have the category table ready. Now we can similarly add a vendors tab as well. Vendors over here, and we'll add similar columns, vendor ID, vendor name, and the vendor type. So these columns will definitely, because as per your business requirement and your system that you are about to develop, right? And again, this is all about consistency and not the complexity of the things. We are making the structure right now, so these things are necessary, right? Now comes the most important separation, right? Raw data should never contain logic. So we will create a separate tab called processed expenses, right? As the name suggests, it is mostly not raw. So we are just uh, making something where we are going to do all the calculations and stuff, right? Processed expenses. And later on, of course, all the formulas, all the logics and stuff will live over here in this at this tab, and this tab will be fully automated later on. No manual typing should be required. Well, that's the goal, right? We can maybe start adding the headers. We can, since I think we can add the same headers over here, because we are going to mostly use the same raw data over here. You can start using the same headers. Maybe you can, since these are formulated, and if you need some other columns as well, then you can add those as well. So just to make some differentiation, maybe we can add a month and year over here instead of created add. That will make some differentiation for now. Yeah, after making all this, finally I will create a dashboard tab. So this tab, remember my third question about the decisions. So this tab is only for decisions, right? So I'll just add dashboard. That's it. No data entry here, no logic here. If you want, you can maybe add a single item, something like expense summary dashboard. So this will make it very clear, right? Like where outputs belong. So dashboard itself says like, hey, this is a summary of everything that we have over here. You just only open the file, go to the dashboard, and look, go through everything. Okay, so this is what we do when we are building a system. We have to make sure that we have different tabs, separations properly configured everywhere. And yes, one last tab, I would say this is optional, but when I work, I feel this tab is very, very powerful, right? So I'm gonna add a last tab, which is config tab, right? Here, any value across your system which might change later on, that goes here, right? So I will be adding maybe a key and value over here. So all the dynamic cells and stuff will be going over here. So this prevents hard coding and makes the system flexible. Now let's since I've already discussed all the tabs, all the headers of the tabs, why we are making these, how we are making these as per the requirement, and yeah, now summarizing the whole flow. So the flow becomes very clear. The new data will enter over here in the raw expenses. Reference data will be living somewhere over here in vendors and categories, and then all the logic and calculation will be done in the processed expenses, and all the decisions will be made via the dashboard tab, right? And controls live in config tab. So this separation alone solves most of the spreadsheet problems.
So this mindset is what allows you to move into formulas and automations without things breaking. In the next video, we will start with the formulas, but only the ones which actually runs the real businesses. If you want to build systems instead of messy spreadsheet, follow the playlist. Let's continue.